The signal arrived on a Tuesday morning, crackling through the quantum relay stations like a dying breath across the cosmos. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Lunar Base, watching the transmission decode on the holographic displays. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she hadn't noticed. The message was repeating, over and over, in a language the computers were still struggling to translate. Lieutenant Chen called from the communications array. "We've got a partial translation. It's not good." Elena walked over, her boots echoing in the sterile chamber. The Lunar Base Command Center was a cathedral of technology, with curved walls lined with screens showing data streams from across human space. But right now, all attention focused on one signal from the darkness beyond. "Put it through the speakers," Elena ordered. The voice that emerged was alien, distorted by distance and desperation. The translation software had done its best, but gaps remained. "World dying, children screaming, they consume everything. Please, anyone. Kepler-442b, running out of time. They are coming." The transmission cut to static, then began repeating. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Kepler-442b was 43 light-years away, in the Lyra constellation. Humanity had detected it decades ago as a potentially habitable world, but it was far beyond their exploration range. How did this reach us? Elena asked. "Quantum-based transmission," Chen replied, his fingers dancing across the interface. "Someone over there has technology we've only theorized about. They are burning incredible amounts of energy just to send this message. If they can do that, and they're still calling for help." Elena nodded grimly. Whatever was happening on Kepler-442b, it was bad enough that an advanced civilization was begging strangers for rescue. The blast doors to the command center hissed open, and Admiral Harrison strode in. His face was grim, his silver hair disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. "Captain Vasquez, tell me you have good news about that signal." "No, sir. It's exactly what we feared. An entire world under attack by something they call the Devourers. They are requesting immediate assistance." Harrison's jaw tightened. "From us? We're barely holding our own territory together. The Mars colonies are still rebuilding after the Centauri raids. The Outer Rim settlements are screaming for more patrol ships. And now some aliens want us to fly across half the galaxy to fight their war. Sir, the transmission technology alone suggests they are far more advanced than us. If they are losing, then what chance do we have?" Harrison interrupted. "Captain, I understand your concern, but we have responsibilities to our own people first. The Colonial Defense Committee will never approve a mission like this." Elena stayed at the star charts floating above the central holotable. Kepler-442b pulsed like a dying ember in the distant darkness. What if we don't ask permission? The command center fell silent. Even the background hum of computers seemed to pause. Harrison's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Captain, you're talking about mutiny. Taking ships across interstellar space without authorization. Even if you could manage it, what ships? We don't have anything capable of that kind of range." Elena smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Actually, sir, we do." She gestured to Chen, who brought up a new display. 3 ship profiles appeared, sleek and deadly. The UES Retribution, UES Nemesis, and UES Wrath. Earth's newest warships, designed for long-range operations and equipped with experimental jump drives. The Omega-class destroyers, Elena continued. They are sitting in Titan dock, fully provisioned and ready for their shakedown cruise. Their jump drives can reach Kepler-442b in 6 weeks. Those ships are prototypes. Their crews are still training. And you're talking about taking Earth's 3 most powerful warships on an unauthorized mission to the far end of space. "Yes, sir. I am." Harrison was quiet for a long moment, studying Elena's face. She'd served under him for 12 years, through the asteroid wars and the first contact disasters. He'd seen her make impossible decisions before, but never like this. "Elena," he said quietly, "you could be court-martialed, stripped of rank, imprisoned. I could also save an entire civilization." The signal chose that moment to repeat again, the alien voice crying out across the void. In the translated words, Elena heard children screaming, cities burning, hope dying. "The Colonial Defense Committee meets in 6 hours," Harrison said finally. "They'll debate for days, maybe weeks. By then, there might be nothing left to save. Harrison nodded slowly. The Omega ships are scheduled for a training mission in the outer system. If something went wrong with their navigation computers, if they accidentally jumped too far. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Accidents happen, sir. Indeed they do. Captain, if you do this thing, you'll be alone out there. No reinforcements, no support. If you run into whatever destroyed that civilization, Earth will never know what happened to you. Understood, say. Harrison stood silent for another moment, then turned toward the exit. At the doorway, he paused without looking back. The Retribution was always your ship, Elena. I suppose it's time she had a proper captain. As the doors closed behind him, Elena was already moving toward the communications panel. She had calls to make, crews to assemble, and a war to fight. Somewhere in the darkness, an alien world was dying. But not if humanity had anything to say about it. The Titan shipyard stretched across the moon's icy surface like a mechanical city, all gleaming metal and pulsing lights. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the UES Retribution, watching her crew load the final supplies. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the other two Omega-class destroyers, Nemesis and Wrath, their sleek hulls bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Final crew manifest, Captain, Commander Sarah Blake said, approaching with a tablet in hand. Blake was Elena's executive officer, a sharp-eyed woman from the European Federation with a reputation for keeping difficult crews in line. We've got volunteers from across the fleet. Word leaked about our mission, despite the security protocols. Elena frowned. How many know the real destination? Too many. But Captain, that's not the problem. The problem is we have 500 applications for 90 crew positions. Every one of them knows this is likely a one-way trip. Elena took the tablet, scrolling through the names. Some she recognized, veterans from the frontier wars, survivors of the Callisto incident, the best and brightest of Earth's military. Others were unknowns, young officers looking for their chance at something that mattered. Status report from the other ships. Captain Morrison on the Nemesis reports ready for departure. The Wrath is still loading quantum torpedoes, but Captain Torres says she'll be ready within the hour. Elena nodded. Morrison was a steady veteran, the kind of officer who followed orders and brought his people home. Torres was younger, more aggressive, but brilliant in combat. If they were going to face something that had destroyed an advanced civilization, she needed both types. The intercom crackled to life. Captain Vasquez to the bridge. Priority transmission from Lunar Base. Elena exchanged glances with Blake, then headed for the command deck. The Retribution's bridge was a masterpiece of human engineering. Curved walls lined with holographic displays, a central command chair surrounded by workstations for navigation, weapons, and communications. The ship's artificial intelligence, Aria, materialized as a blue-tinted hologram near the captain's chair. Captain, Aria said in her calm, synthetic voice, Admiral Harrison is requesting immediate secure communication. Put him through. Harrison's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. Elena, we've got a problem. The Colonial Defense Committee has been briefed on your mission. They've ordered the dock supervisor to prevent your departure. Elena felt her jaw clench. On what grounds? Unauthorized use of military assets. Reckless endangerment of critical defense resources. Take your pick. Harrison paused, glancing around as if checking for eavesdroppers. Elena, there are security forces en route to Titan. You have maybe 20 minutes before they arrive with shutdown codes for your ships. Understood, say. Elena turned to Blake. All stations, prepare for immediate departure. Captain, Harrison continued, there's something else. We've been monitoring subspace channels. That distress signal from Kepler-442b. It stopped transmitting 6 hours ago. Elena felt cold certainty settle in her chest. They're gone. We don't know that for certain. The signal could have been cut off for any number of reasons. But Elena, if that world has already fallen, then we find out what killed them, and we make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Harrison was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Good hunting, Captain. Bring your people home. The transmission ended. Elena turned to her crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that burned in her chest. These were people who had volunteered for the impossible, knowing the odds. Aria, status on jump drive systems. All 3 ships report jump drives online and calibrated for extreme range transit. Quantum calculations confirm Kepler-442b coordinates are locked and verified. Commander Blake, signal the fleet. All ships prepare for emergency departure. We launch in 10 minutes. The next few minutes were controlled chaos. Docking clamps disengaged with mechanical groans. Titan's traffic control was screaming over the communications channels, demanding they abort launch. Elena ignored them all, watching the tactical display as 3 security cutters approached from lunar base. "They are moving to intercept," Lieutenant Chen reported from communications. "Let them try," Elena replied grimly. "Aria, are we clear of the shipyard superstructure?" "Affirmative, Captain. All ships report ready for jump." Elena settled into the command chair, feeling the familiar hum of the Retribution's engines vibrating through the deck plates. On the view screen, the stars wheeled as the ship oriented toward the distant constellation of Lyra. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez to all ships," she announced over the fleet channel. "Today we answer a call that echoed across worlds. We go into the unknown to face an enemy that has already destroyed one civilization. We may not come home, but we go because someone has to. Because that's what humanity does. We stand up when others fall down. We fight when others give up. And we never, ever abandon those who call for help." She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. Young faces and old, all united by the same burning purpose. "All ships, initiate jump sequence. Destination, Kepler-442b. Maximum transit speed." The jump drives powered up with a sound like reality tearing. Space twisted around the 3 warships, stars stretching into lines of light. Elena felt the familiar sensation of existing in multiple places at once as the Retribution slipped between dimensions. When the universe stabilized around them, Earth was gone. They were alone in the void between stars, racing toward a world that might already be dead. But they were humanity's answer to the darkness. And they would not stop until they found what had destroyed Kepler-442b, or died trying. The jump transition ended with a sensation like falling through ice water. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped her command chair as the UES Retribution materialized in normal space, the other 2 destroyers appearing alongside her in perfect formation. The bridge lights flickered as Aria recalibrated the ship's systems. "Jump complete," the AI announced. "All systems nominal. We are now in the Kepler-442 system." Elena looked at the main view screen, expecting to see a star system much like their own. Instead, she saw hell. The star Kepler-442 still burned in the center of the system, but something was wrong with its light. Dark tendrils seemed to writhe across its surface, like parasites feeding on stellar matter. The space around it was filled with debris, the shattered remains of what had once been a thriving civilization. "My God," whispered Commander Blake from beside her chair. "Full sensor sweep," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the horror spreading across the view screen. "I want to know what happened here." Lieutenant Chen's hands flew across his console. "Captain, I'm reading massive debris fields throughout the system. Orbital structures, ships, what looks like the remains of space stations. But there's something else, energy signatures I've never seen before." The tactical display materialized above the bridge, showing the Kepler-442 system in 3 dimensions. Elena could see the debris fields Chen mentioned, but also something more disturbing. Dark masses moved through the system, each one the size of a small moon. Aria, analysis of those objects. "Unknown compositions, Captain. They appear to be organic in nature, but structured in ways that defy current understanding of biology. They are consuming stellar matter and converting it into something else." "The Devourers," Elena said quietly. "We found them." Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communications channel from the Nemesis. "Elena, are you seeing this? These things are eating the star itself." "Confirmed," Captain Torres added from the Roth. "And they are moving toward the 4th planet. What's left of it?" Elena studied the display. Kepler-442b hung in the void like a broken egg, its surface scarred by massive wounds. But incredibly, impossibly, there were still energy readings from the planet's surface. "There are survivors," she breathed. "Aria, can you establish communication with the planet?" Attempting to match the frequency of the original distress signal, Arya replied. After a moment, static filled the bridge speakers, then cleared into a weak transmission. Anyone out there, holding the last shelter? They are breaking through the barriers. Please. The voice was different from the original transmission, younger, more desperate. Elena felt her heart clench. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Retribution. We received your distress signal. What is your situation? Silence stretched for long seconds, then the voice returned, filled with shock and hope. You came. You actually came. I am Zaraket, keeper of the final sanctuary. We are the last of our people, perhaps 2,000 souls hiding in the deep shelters. But the Devourers have found us. They are breaking through our barriers. We have perhaps 6 of your hours before they reach us. Elena looked at the tactical display. The nearest Devourer was still several million kilometers from the planet, but it was moving steadily inward, consuming everything in its path. Zaraket, we're going to help you, but I need to understand what we're fighting. What are these Devourers? How do we stop them? You cannot stop them, came the reply, heavy with despair. We tried for cycles beyond counting. They consume worlds, stars, entire systems. They convert matter into more of themselves. Our civilization spanned 12 worlds when they first appeared. Now only fragments of one world remain. Commander Blake leaned close to Elena. Captain, even if we could evacuate 2,000 people, our ships can't carry them all. And we'd never outrun those things. Elena nodded grimly, then activated the fleet channel. Morrison, Torres, tactical assessment. How do we fight something that eats stars? Torres responded first, her voice tight with analysis. The quantum torpedoes might penetrate their organic armor. But Captain, look at the size of these things. They are each the mass of a small planet. Our entire arsenal might not even get their attention. There has to be a way, Elena insisted. Zaraket, your people must have learned something during your war. Some weakness, some way to hurt them. The alien's response came slowly. There is one thing. The Devourers feed on energy, but they cannot process certain quantum frequencies. Our ancestors discovered this, but by then it was too late to save our worlds. They built a weapon, a frequency generator that could disrupt the Devourer cellular structure, but it required the complete energy output of our star to power it. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Where is this weapon? The ruins of our orbital station, near the star's corona. But it has been damaged, and even if it could be repaired, the power requirements. Elena was already thinking, her mind racing through possibilities. The Retribution and her sister ships each carried a fusion reactor capable of powering a small city, combined with the other ships, and if they could somehow channel the star's own energy. Arya, analysis. Could we repair and power this frequency weapon? Insufficient data for complete analysis, Captain. However, theoretical models suggest that with proper modifications to our ship's reactors and direct interface with stellar matter, it might be possible. The probability of survival for any ship attempting this would be approximately 0%. Elena smiled grimly. I've beaten worse odds than that. She opened the channel to Zaraket. We're coming to get your people. Prepare them for emergency evacuation, and send us the coordinates of that weapon platform. Captain, Morrison's voice cut in over the fleet channel. If we're going to try this insane plan, we need to move fast. I'm reading increased activity from the nearest Devourer. It's accelerating toward the planet. Elena looked at the tactical display one more time. A dying world, impossible aliens, and a weapon that might not even work. The smart move was to evacuate who they could and run. But Elena Vasquez had never been accused of being smart. All ships, battle stations. We're going to save this world and kill some star-eating monsters in the process. The bridge erupted in controlled activity as her crew prepared for the impossible. In the darkness between stars, the Devourers continued their eternal feast, unaware that humanity had arrived to spoil their appetite. The approach to Kepler-442b was like flying through a graveyard of civilizations. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the tactical display as the 3 Earth warships navigated between massive chunks of debris, the remains of cities, ships, and orbital platforms that had once been home to billions of beings. Entering high orbit, Lieutenant Chen reported. The Devourer nearest to the planet has increased speed. Estimated time until it reaches the surface, 4 hours, 37 minutes. Elena nodded grimly. Through the viewscreen, she could see the wounded planet below. Massive craters scarred its surface where the Devourers had fed, but incredibly, vast underground cities still pulsed with life signs. Zaraket, Elena called over the communication channel. We're in orbit. Beginning transport operations immediately. The alien's voice was strained with exhaustion. The deep shelters are opening emergency ports. But, Captain, the barriers are failing faster than predicted. Some of the outer shelters have already been breached. Elena felt her jaw clench. How many people can you get to the primary evacuation points? Perhaps 800. The others, they cannot reach us in time. 800 out of 2,000. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with renewed determination. We'll take who we can. Torres, Morrison, begin emergency beam-up operations. Maximum transport capacity. The next hour was organized chaos. The 3 ships' transporters worked constantly, beaming survivors directly from the planet's surface into makeshift refugee areas in the cargo bays. Elena watched the numbers climb. 200, 400, 600 souls rescued from certain death. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Captain, Commander Blake called from her station, the Devourer has entered the planet's outer atmosphere. It's beginning to feed on the upper atmospheric layers. Elena looked at the tactical display. The creature was vast beyond comprehension, a dark mass the size of Earth's moon pressing down toward the planet's surface. As it fed, tendrils of darkness spread across the sky, blocking out the star's light. Final transport complete. Torres reported from the Roth. We have 812 survivors aboard our ships. Elena felt the weight of all the lives they hadn't been able to save. 1,200 people still trapped in the deep shelters, watching death descend from above. Zaraket, she called. We have your coordinates for the weapon platform. Are you absolutely certain it can work? Our ancestors' calculations were precise, Captain. The frequency generator can disrupt the Devourer cellular structure, but only if powered by stellar energy equivalent to our star's entire output. No ship could survive channeling such power. Elena smiled grimly. Let me worry about that. Can you guide us to the platform? Transmitting coordinates now. But, Captain, even if you succeed in destroying this Devourer, there are others. Hundreds of them throughout this system, and more coming from the void beyond. Elena felt cold certainty settle in her chest. This wasn't just about saving one world. This was about stopping something that could consume the entire galaxy. One nightmare at a time, she replied. All ships, new heading. Take us to that weapon platform. The journey toward Kepler-442 star was like flying into the mouth of hell. The Devourers had damaged the star's corona, creating massive solar flares and energy storms. The 3 Earth ships pushed through the chaos, their shields sparking with discharged energy. There, Jen called out, pointing at the main screen. The weapon platform. Elena stared at the ancient structure floating in the star's outer atmosphere. It was massive, easily the size of a space station, but scarred and broken from decades of neglect and damage. Crystalline spires jutted from its central core, dark and lifeless. ARIA analysis. The platform's power systems are offline, but the core frequency generator appears intact. With proper interface connections and power routing from our ship's reactors, it might be possible to activate the weapon. The energy requirements would require complete power transfer from all 3 ships simultaneously. The feedback would likely destroy our reactors and leave us stranded in the star's corona. Survival probability approaches 0. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had volunteered for a suicide mission, and now she was asking them to actually commit suicide for strangers they'd never met. Captain, Blake said quietly, there might be another way. If we can't power the weapon and survive, maybe we don't need to survive. Elena raised an eyebrow. Explain. Ramming speed. We channel all our reactor power into the weapon platform, activate the frequency generator, then use our remaining momentum to drive the platform directly into the nearest Devourer. Point-blank range, maximum power output. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. That's definitely a suicide run. Maybe. But the refugees on our ships would have a chance. Set the autopilot to take them back to Earth after the mission is complete. Elena looked at the tactical display. The Devourer had now enveloped half of Kepler-442b, its dark mass consuming the planet's crust. Somewhere below that nightmare, 1,200 people were dying in underground shelters. She activated the fleet channel. Morrison, Torres, you heard the plan. I won't order you to do this. Anyone who wants to transfer to evacuation duties can do so now. Morrison's voice came back immediately. Elena, we came here to stop these things. That's what we're going to do. Torres was equally direct. The Wrath is with you, Captain. Let's go kill a Star Eater. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. These were the best humanity had to offer. People who would sacrifice everything for strangers they'd never meet. Aria, begin power transfer protocols. Route all reactor output to the weapon platform. And set course for the Devourer consuming Kepler-442b. Acknowledged, Captain. Power transfer commencing. The platform's crystals are beginning to resonate. Elena watched the ancient weapon come to life, its crystalline spires glowing with barely-contained energy. The frequency it generated was beyond human hearing, but somehow she could feel it in her bones, a sound like reality itself being torn apart. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's intercom. Prepare for final approach. It has been an honor saving with all of you. The 3 Earth warships accelerated toward the nightmare consuming Kepler-442b, their weapon charging with the power to kill gods. Humanity had answered the call that echoed across worlds. Now it was time to make that answer count. The final approach felt like flying into the mouth of a living nightmare. The Devourer engulfing Kepler-442b stretched across Elena's viewscreen like a dark cancer, its surface writhing with organic patterns that hurt to look at directly. Tendrils of darkness reached toward the 3 Earth warships as they accelerated toward their target. Weapon platform at 80% charge, Aria reported, her calm voice at odds with the chaos surrounding them. Reactor output approaching critical thresholds. Elena gripped her command chair as the Retribution shuddered under the massive energy drain. All around the bridge, displays flickered and warning lights flashed red. The ship was giving everything it had to power the ancient alien weapon. Torres, Morrison, status report. Elena called over the fleet channel. Rough holding together, Torres replied, her voice tight with strain. Reactor temperature in the red zone, but we're still functional. Morrison's transmission was broken by static. Nemesis, power coupling failure on Deck 7, but we're still with you, Elena. Elena looked at the tactical display. The weapon platform blazed between the 3 ships like a miniature star, its crystalline arrays now glowing so brightly they were painful to look at. The frequency it generated was building to levels that made the hull plates vibrate. Distance to target? Elena asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing, Jen reported. The Devourer has noticed us. It's changing shape. Elena watched in fascination and horror as the massive creature began to alter its configuration. Portions of its dark mass flowed like liquid, forming what could only be defensive structures, hardened shells and energy-absorbing surfaces designed to protect its core. It learns, Elena breathed. It's adapting to threats. Captain, Blake called from her station, I'm reading massive power buildups throughout the creature's body. I think it's preparing some kind of weapon system. As if summoned by her words, lances of dark energy erupted from the Devourer's surface, reaching toward the approaching Earthships. The beams struck their shields with tremendous force, sending shockwaves through the hull. Shields down to 60%, Jen reported. Another hit like that and we're finished. Elena made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life, however long that might be. Aria, transfer all power from life support and artificial gravity to forward shields. Emergency protocols for crew survival. The bridge lights dimmed to emergency power as the ship's atmosphere systems shut down. Elena felt herself becoming weightless as the artificial gravity failed, but the shield strengthened just enough to deflect the next energy barrage. 30,000 kilometers, Chen announced, his voice steady despite floating in zero gravity. Elena activated her personal communications unit, broadcasting on all frequencies, to the refugee ships that would carry survivors home, to any remaining defenders on Kepler-442b, and to Earth itself, 43 light-years away. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Retribution. If anyone receives this message, know that we found something terrible in the darkness between stars. The Devourers consume entire civilizations, and they are spreading across the galaxy. We're going to try to stop at least one of them, but there are more out there. Be ready, be vigilant, and remember that sometimes someone has to stand up to the monsters. The weapon platform was now burning like a captured star, its energy output climbing beyond anything human technology had ever achieved. Elena could see the frequency waves it generated as distortions in space itself, rippling outward like stones thrown into a cosmic pond. 10,000 kilometers, Jen called out. The Devourer is trying to retreat. Elena smiled grimly as she watched the massive creature attempting to pull back from the planet's surface. But it was too late. They were too close, moving too fast. 5,000 kilometers. Impact in 30 seconds. Elena looked around the bridge one last time at her crew. Blake floating at her station, still coordinating shield harmonics. Chen maintaining course despite systems failures cascading around him. Young Lieutenant Hayes a tactical, his face set with determination despite knowing what came next. All hands, Elena announced. Brace for impact. It's been an honor. The weapon platform struck the Devourer's surface and penetrated deep into its core before detonating. The frequency generator discharged 50 years of stored stellar energy in a single devastating pulse, sending waves of destructive resonance through the creature's cellular structure. Elena watched in awe as the monster began to come apart from the inside. The dark mass that had been consuming Kepler-442b writhed and convulsed, then started to dissolve into component particles. The frequency weapon was literally tearing apart the bonds that held the creature together. But the Devourer fought back. Even as it died, it lashed out with every weapon it possessed. Dark energy beams swept across the three Earth ships, overloading their shields and tearing through hull plating. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Blake reported. Blood trickling from her scalp where she'd struck a console. Reactor containment failing. Elena felt the retribution shuddering around her as systems failed cascading throughout the ship. But on the view screen, the Devourer continued to dissolve, its massive form breaking apart and drifting away from the wounded planet below. Torres, Morrison, report. Torres's voice was weak but triumphant. Roth is heavily damaged but intact. Morrison. Silence stretched for long seconds before Morrison's voice crackled through, distorted by static. Nemesis took a direct hit to the reactor core. We're evacuating to escape pods. But Elena, we got the bastard. Look at your screens. Elena looked at the tactical display and felt tears stream down her face. The massive Devourer was gone, reduced to scattered particles drifting in space. Below them, Kepler-442b hung in the void, wounded but alive. The survivors in the deep shelters were safe. Zaraket, Elena called weakly. This is the Retribution. The immediate threat is neutralized. Are your people safe? The alien's voice came back filled with wonder and gratitude. Captain Vasquez, our sensors show the creature is gone. Completely destroyed. You did something our entire civilization could not accomplish. You saved our world. Elena smiled despite the pain in her chest and the taste of blood in her mouth. Just returning the favor. You called for help across the galaxy. We couldn't ignore that. But even as she spoke, Elena's eyes were fixed on the long-range sensors. The other Devourers in the system had noticed the death of their companion. They were converging on Kepler-442, drawn by the commotion. Aria, Elena whispered. Time until the other Devourers reach this planet. Approximately 72 hours, Captain. But our ships are too damaged for another engagement. Elena nodded, feeling exhaustion settling into her bones. They had won one battle, but the war was far from over. The refugee ships would carry survivors back to Earth with word of the threat. Humanity would prepare. And maybe, just maybe, they would be ready when the Devourers came calling. She activated the communications one last time. This is Captain Elena Vasquez to all ships. Mission accomplished. Set course for home. As the battered remnants of Earth's task force limped away from Kepler-442, Elena allowed herself one moment of satisfaction. They had answered a call that echoed across worlds. And they had proven that sometimes, the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger, more dangerous universe. But they had taken it together.